The screen fades in from black. A crackling, distorted sound fills the air as fragments of reality ripple and tear. Deadpool, clad in bloodied red and black, stumbles through a fractured version of New York City, his eyes wide with disbelief. Around him, timelines bleed into each other. Heroes and villains from countless worlds clash endlessly. A kaleidoscope of chaos. He reaches out, panicked, as his own voice echoes, fragmented. This isn't supposed to happen. In the distance, a familiar, sinister laugh reverberates, hinting at a force beyond comprehension. The world isn't ending. It already has. Deadpool had always been chaos incarnate, a mercenary who thrived on breaking rules, bending reality, and mocking fate itself. He had fought the unimaginable, teased death, and shattered timelines with reckless abandon. But this time, he had failed. And now, the universe, or rather, every universe was paying the price. Cities were crumbling into themselves. Historical events overlapped in maddening dissonance. And beings of incredible power wandered aimlessly, lost in loops of conflict and confusion. The sound of shattering glass and collapsing buildings filled the air. But it was nothing compared to the silence of the heroes who could no longer act. Paralyzed by the weight of paradoxes Deadpool himself had failed to mend. He landed roughly atop a ruined skyscraper, the wind whipping through the skeletal remains of what had once been the pinnacle of human achievement. His eyes caught glimpses of Thor dueling Thanos, while Spider-Man swung through impossible gaps in the fabric of reality. Deadpool's hands trembled as he attempted to pull at the strands of time, like trying to unweave a tapestry already consumed by fire. Okay. Maybe I messed up just a smidge, he muttered to himself, his voice trembling as he realized the scope of his failure. But failure here wasn't just temporary, it was infinite. Every timeline he had broken, every crack he had left unrepaired, had metastasized into a cancer that consumed existence itself. Alternate Earth collided violently, their suns imploding in deadly synchrony. Heroes fell before enemies they didn't recognize. Alliances shattered before they could even form. The universe wasn't collapsing, it was being rewritten by some malevolent hand. And that hand had Deadpool's fingerprints all over it. And in the center of it all, hovering above a fractured horizon where reality bent like glass, was a figure that should not exist. Cloaked in shadows that seemed to devour light itself, its face a mirror of Deadpool's own twisted reflection. It whispered in a voice that cut through dimensions, "You were never meant to fix it, Wade, only to watch it end." Deadpool swallowed hard, gripping the hilt of one of his katanas, as his usual sarcasm faltered under the weight of true terror. He had always joked about apocalypse scenarios, breaking the fourth wall to mock the absurdity of death and destruction. But now, surrounded by the undeniable proof of failure, he realized he was powerless. The timelines he had so gleefully torn apart were no longer threads he could stitch, they were flames he could not even touch. And yet, somewhere deep inside, that reckless spark that had always defined him refused to die. "Okay, big guy. Maybe there's a plan," Deadpool muttered to no one. Even as shadows stretched unnaturally around him, the world itself bending toward an inevitable collapse, his mind raced. There had to be a way to fix this. There had to be. Some impossible, absurdly improbable method to restore order. Because if he didn't, the very concept of existence would be erased, not tomorrow, not later, but now, all at once. And Deadpool, for all his jokes and bravado, had never been more terrified in his life. He leaped from the broken rooftop, landing in the middle of what looked like a battlefield stitched from multiple universes. A flash of light revealed countless iterations of himself, each screaming, each fighting, each failing in different ways, all overlapping in a maddening cacophony. And amidst it all, Deadpool knew the truth. This wasn't just about saving the world, it was about saving all worlds. And if he failed again, there would be nothing left to joke about. The air grew thick with tension as he took a deep breath, every nerve screaming at him to flee, to hide, to deny what had come to pass. But Deadpool's gaze hardened. There was one thing he had learned through countless deaths, countless failures, even when the odds were impossible. Even when the universe itself seemed determined to erase him, he refused to surrender. With a manic grin that masked the fear beneath, he muttered, "All right, universe, let's dance." Deadpool's boots struck the cracked concrete as he sprinted through a city that had no right existing. Skyscrapers twisted like molten wax, streets looped back on themselves, and every corner he turned revealed a new nightmare. Captain America, fighting an Iron Man gone rogue. Loki, laughing, his entire timelines bent to his will, and fragments of alien worlds raining fire down upon unsuspecting civilians. The very laws of physics were optional here, and every step Deadpool took seemed to push him further into the heart of chaos. He paused atop a half-collapsed bridge, panting, and tried to gather his thoughts. The multiverse wasn't just broken, it was bleeding, each tear widening as reality bled into itself. Deadpool's mind raced, flashing through every plan he'd ever considered, every fourth-wall-breaking cheat he had ever joked about using. Nothing worked here. There were no cheat codes, no convenient deus ex machina waiting in the shadows. There was only this: failure. His failure. His failure. From the rubble, a voice called out, soft at first, but growing louder, more insistent. Wade. Wade Wilson. He turned sharply, his twin katanas raised, but there was no one there. Just a flickering holographic projection, a memory of someone he had once known. Someone who had warned him about meddling too far with time. You can't fix what you've destroyed, the figure said, eyes hollow, voice dripping sorrow. Every timeline you've shattered is a life lost. Every choice you avoided has come back to haunt you. Deadpool's grin faltered. Memories flashed years. He had spent jumping through dimensions, killing, joking, mocking death itself. And now, in the silence of a collapsing universe, the weight of those choices pressed down on him like a cosmic hammer. Yeah, okay, I get it, he muttered. I kinda, really messed up. He clenched his fists, trying to block out the screams and the cracking sky, trying to focus. But there's gotta be a way to fix this, right? A sudden tremor ran through the city, throwing him off balance. Buildings twisted violently, as if reality itself were vomiting him out of existence. Deadpool's head snapped upward, eyes widening. From the fractured sky, a colossal figure descended, neither fully Deadpool, nor fully something else. Its form shimmered, flickering with the essence of every timeline he had ever broken, every joke he had ever made, every friend he had lost. It was him, and yet it was not. A voice thundered through the void, resonating in every shard of broken reality. I am the consequence of your failures, Wade Wilson. I am the end of everything you promised to protect. Deadpool swallowed hard, his usual sarcasm failing him. Okay, big guy, not gonna lie, you're kinda scary, he muttered, his hands shaking around the hilt of his sword. But fear alone wouldn't save the multiverse. He had to act. He had to fight, and somehow, impossibly, he had to find a way to undo the damage he had caused. The thing hovering above him smirked, a reflection of his own twisted humorand, with a wave of its hand. Entire city blocks crumbled, heroes screamed as timelines collapsed around them, and the air itself seemed to catch fire. Deadpool knew he had to move. Not just fast, but smarter. Faster than he had ever been before. He sprinted across the broken streets, weaving through the chaos, dodging falling debris and bursts of energy from fractured heroes and villains alike. He ducked beneath a falling statue of Ultron, somersaulted over a portal that spat out endless waves of green lanterns from doomed universes, and narrowly avoided a reality-bending blast from a furious Doctor Strange. Every moment was a fight for survival, every breath a defiance of the apocalypse he himself had caused. Finally, he paused on the edge of a cliff, overlooking a valley where entire worlds collided. It was a nightmare landscape of fire, metal, and distorted flesh, a place where the laws of existence had been rewritten into a grotesque mockery of life. And there, standing at the center, was the heart of the collapse, a massive, pulsing rift, a tear in the fabric of reality that radiated raw, chaotic energy. Deadpool's gut twisted, his mind screaming at him to run. But deep down, he knew what he had to do. This was the final chance, the impossible move that could either save everything or end it forever. Deadpool's eyes narrowed as he studied the rift, the pulsing wound in reality itself. Every instinct screamed at him to turn and flee, but turning wasn't an option. The rift wasn't just a tear in the universe, it was a beacon, calling him forward, daring him to try where countless others would fail. The energy radiating from it distorted the air, twisting time and space into impossible loops. 1 second, he saw a heroic version of himself leaping into the rift. The next, a twisted version, screaming in agony as the universe folded around him. He swallowed hard, gripping his katanas tighter. Okay, I can do this, he muttered, forcing his voice to sound braver than he felt. I just need, like a really stupid plan. Yeah, really stupid. But genius level stupid. But genius level stupid. Deadpool sprinted toward the rift, leaping across crumbling highways, dodging fragments of collapsing realities. Each step felt like walking on glass, each breath a struggle against the pull of entropy, trying to drag him into nothingness. As he approached the edge, the shadowy figure, the living embodiment of his failure, appeared again. Larger now, its form shifting with every broken timeline it contained. You cannot undo what has been done, it hissed, voice like grinding metal. Every choice you avoided, every life you ignored, every joke you made at the expense of fate, it ends here. Deadpool raised a katana, his teeth gritting. Yeah, okay. But have you ever met the merc with a mouth? With a scream that was half defiance, half insanity, Deadpool leaped into the rift. Reality screamed back, twisting around him, distorting him, threatening to erase him entirely. He swung his katanas wildly, slicing through strands of collapsing time, cutting fragments of alternate worlds from the void. Memories, possibilities, lives he had never lived, but should have flashed around him. Deadpool's heart pounded as he realized that to mend the rift, he had to confront every version of himself, every failure he had ever caused, and accept them all at once. In the chaos, a flicker of hope appeared. He saw a version of Vanessa, his anchor, his love, the one constant in a sea of madness reaching out to him from a broken dimension. Wait, you have to fix it. Her voice echoed, soft, yet piercing through the chaos. It's not about being perfect, it's about trying. Her words pierced through the panic, and for the first time since the collapse began, Deadpool felt clarity. He could not undo everything, but maybe, just maybe, he could stitch enough of reality back together to save something, anyone, from total annihilation. He plunged deeper into the rift, dodging flashes of collapsing time. He saw worlds where heroes had lost, where villains had triumphed, and where his own hubris had reshaped existence into a nightmare. Deadpool's hands shook as he reached out to touch the heart of the rift, the pulsing core of destruction. All right, here goes nothing, he whispered, closing his eyes and pouring every shred of will, every ounce of chaotic energy, every twisted version of himself into one desperate act of creation. The rift screamed, reality shuddered, and for a heartbeat, it seemed as though the universe itself held its breath. Then, with a violent explosion of light and sound, everything stopped. Deadpool floated in a void of silence, weightless, suspended between worlds, and slowly, as if waking from a long nightmare, he felt the pull of gravity, the hum of life, and the whisper of timelines beginning to settle into place. The silence broke with a faint, almost imperceptible hummer sound of reality reassembling itself. Deadpool opened his eyes to a world that looked normal, or as normal as it could be after what he had just witnessed. The sky was blue, the streets intact, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, he could breathe without feeling the weight of entire universes pressing down on him. Yet, something lingered, a subtle echo of what had been lost, a reminder that even though the rift had been closed, the scars of failure remained. Deadpool stumbled through the streets, scanning the horizon. Familiar faces appeared, Spider-Man swinging overhead, Thor hovering cautiously above the city, Doctor Strange meditating amid a swirl of mystic energy. They looked relieved, wary, but alive. Deadpool's grin flickered, the familiar bravado slowly returning. Well, that was fun. Who's up for a chimichanga? He quipped, though his voice lacked its usual irreverent certainty. For the first time, he felt the weight of what he had done, not just as Deadpool the mercenary, but as Deadpool the accidental savior of countless worlds. A shadow fell over him, and he turned to see the figure from the rift, smaller now, weakened, but still carrying the same haunting echo. He looked at him, not with malice, but with a strange respect. You survived, it whispered, fading slowly into the light of the repaired world. Deadpool tilted his head. Yeah, barely. But hey, that's kind of my thing, isn't it? The figure dissolved, leaving only the faint shimmer of broken realities. A ghostly reminder that the multiverse was fragile, and his role in it more dangerous than ever. As the heroes regrouped, Deadpool found a quiet spot amidst the rubble. He sat down, watching the sun reflect off the shards of broken glass and twisted metal. For the first time, he allowed himself to reflect on the enormity of what had happened. He hadn't just faced an enemy, he had faced himself. Every failure and mistake magnified across infinite time. And yet, Despite all that, he had survived. He had acted when it mattered most, not out of heroism or duty, but because somehow, deep down, he refused to let the universe die. He smiled faintly, the grin tinged with exhaustion and realization. Guess sometimes failing isn't the end. Sometimes it's just the start of a new joke. A really, really long joke. The city around him slowly returned to life, people emerging from the shadows, heroes tending to the wounded, and the world beginning to heal. Deadpool knew the scars would remain on reality, on him, and in the echoes of the timelines he had nearly destroyed. But he had learned something profound. Even in the face of impossible failure, there was a chance for redemption. A chance to mend what had been broken, one chaotic step at a time. As he stood and dusted himself off, Deadpool looked toward the horizon. The sun was rising, casting golden light over a world that had survived the brink of annihilation. He knew the peace wouldn't last forever. There would always be threats, always be timelines at risk, always be chaos waiting around the corner. But for now, he had done the impossible. And with a wry smirk, he whispered to no one in particular, "All right, universe, you can breathe easy, for now." And somewhere deep within the multiverse, timelines whispered their gratitude, fragile yet persistent, echoing the truth Deadpool had learned in the crucible of infinite failure. Even the most broken of heroes can make a difference. And even the end of everything can be the beginning of something new. In the end, Deadpool learned that failure is not always final, and chaos, no matter how absolute, can be met with courage if that courage comes wrapped in irreverence and madness. The multiverse had nearly ended because of him, yet it survived, not because of perfection or control, but because he refused to give up when all hope seemed lost. Sometimes the weight of responsibility falls on the most unlikely shoulders, and sometimes the world's salvation comes from the most unpredictable of heroes. Deadpool's story is a reminder that even in the face of ultimate failure, redemption is possible. The end of everything does not have to mean the end of hope. Every choice, no matter how chaotic or flawed, has the potential to shape the future. And for Wade Wilson, the merc with a mouth, that meant one thing: no matter how broken reality became, no matter how impossible the odds, he would always fight, always stumble forward, and somehow against all logic make a difference. Because even when the universe is on the brink of collapse, even when timelines shatter and heroes fall, there is always room for one more impossible chance. And in Deadpool's hands, that chance is never boring, never predictable, and never over.